Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome. This week, in fact, over the last fortnight, we celebrate in Aotearoa the feast of Matariki. It's the end of one year and the beginning of another. And it's traditional to begin Matariki by honouring our dead. E na mate, haere, haere, haere. Haere ki te pō. To our dead, farewell, farewell, farewell to the night. And in the night sky they will shine. They are our stars offering some guidance, some light, and much beauty and mystery. The celebration of Matariki, of course, coincides with winter solstice, June the 21st this year, which is the seasonal beginning for the European New Year. Both Māori and European cultures share this time. Matariki occurred at the end of the harvest season, and for us here in Aotearoa at the end of lockdown and distancing. It was a time of giving thanks for our whenua, our land, and Papatuanuki, Tunuku, our Earth Mother, which have sustained us. The Thanksgiving was traditionally marked by pleasurable pastimes like games, feasting. For us right now it is about giving thanks that we have, compared with most countries, been well led and had few deaths. And we are now able to come back together as a community of Jesus' followers. Matariki is also a time of change, a time to prepare, a time for action, a time for planting without seeing the results, a time for new beginnings, a time of lighting small candles of hope in the darkness of our winter. The Hebrew scripture today, the story of Moses being commissioned by the divine light, the star of the burning bush, a commissioning that would change his life. And this divine light introduced itself as the deity of Moses' forebears. But Moses wasn't content with that introduction, for good reason. His forebears followed different deities, as the language in the Hebrew text points to: Yahweh, Elohim, El Shaddai, etc. Each god had their own particular biases and attributes. So Moses asked again and got another answer. I am who I am, or better, I will be who I will be. It's a name based on the verb to be, and it would be a traveling, active, and changing God Moses would end up following. But there is a backstory to Genesis 3. Moses was in Midian, a long way from Egypt, trying his best to fit in, and trying his best to lose that Egyptian accent that people had remarked on when he first arrived. It was an accent worth losing. First, it was a lie. He wasn't an Egyptian. He was a Hebrew, a child raised like a shameful secret in the heart of the Egyptian court. Second, his accent provided a clue to his past misdeeds. The child had become a man back in Egypt. His identity crisis sharpened and caused him to snap. He killed an Egyptian overseer who was beating a Hebrew slave, and thus became a fugitive from Egyptian justice. But Moses dodged the murder charge. He walked the width of the Sinai desert and crossed the border into Midian. He married the daughter of a prominent local family began to work on his prosperity. He wanted to fit in, Did he have nightmares? Did the ghosts of Egypt haunt his sleep? Maybe. This Sunday's reading shows Moses following the flock as he would have done seasonally, a perfectly ordinary Midianite shepherd on a perfectly ordinary day, with only the barest trace of an accent. Everything is on the fit-in track. The recipe for what Moses needed to do next is exactly what immigrants try to do when they reach a new land. He tries to keep his eyes forward and focused, work hard, try to get ahead. When you're a foreigner and your past is a bit shady, you stick to the straight and narrow. One foot goes in front of the other. Direct those fat sheep to market down the straight path. That's all, nothing else. But that's not how our story ends, is it? Moses' eyes stray. Something appears in his peripheral vision. Maybe this vision is the insight that imagination can bring. The commissioning of Moses and the whole story of the Exodus doesn't begin with the divine words from the burning bush. It begins a few lines earlier when Moses, still comfortably at the tail end of Jethro's flocks, with everything to gain by staying the course, fitting in, says to himself, I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burning up. Curiosity may kill the cat. That's why they have 9 lives. But it also ushers in new epochs in history. From one cover of our Bible to the other, and throughout the history of the church, the deity who delights in serendipity upsets the settled and recommended paths of prophets, patriarchs, and disciples. Rather than seeing one's predilection to being distracted as a liability, maybe we need to reconfigure distraction as a strength. Call it peripheral vision, or shifting one's gaze, or daydreaming, an occupational hazard for a shepherd, I would have thought. Or call it faith, whatever. A bush called to him and he forgot the sheep and he wandered off track. And he became one of the stars of our faith to guide us. Then the talking bonfire of a bush told Moses to take off his shoes. Anyone with children and a health and safety manual knows that taking off one's shoes around fires is not a good idea. Sparks and cinders hurt. The shoes off command is about making oneself a wee bit vulnerable when in the presence of the divine. We are familiar in Aotearoa with the instruction to take off one's shoes before entering a wharenui, a meeting house. The courtyard, marae atia, outside the whare, said to be the domain of Tu, the god of war, and the dust and dirt from Tu's domain should not be brought into the wharenui, the domain of Rongo, the god of peace. Like in a medieval European church where you had to leave your shield and sword at the door, so too you had to leave your shoes outside, so that you can come in with others into this sacred space, to sit and talk and to make peace. The writer of Ecclesiastes wrote, there is a time for war and a time for peace. What the writer didn't add was that there's a lot of problems when violence crosses that boundary, as it so often does. The wharenui is also called the whare tupuna, the ancestral house. Taking your shoes off is a sign of respect to your tupuna. When you are inside the body of your ancestors. So on the one hand, removing shoes is practical advice about trekking mud and dirt inside. On the other hand, it is about tapu, holiness of a wharenui, symbolically a place made up of the ancestors. To enter a sacred space, some physical act like bowing or genuflection, or putting on and off clothing or footwear, orientates the mind and heart to the hallowedness of what might be encountered. I think it is helpful to consider a church building, a place of worship, like we have here at St. Luke's, in a similar manner. This is a whare of peace. It's a place different from what's outside the door. It's a place of kindness and gentleness and healing. For this house is also the body of our tupuna, Jesus, the body tapu, and the body of our saints, some of whom are pictorially represented in our windows. And our behavior towards one another and towards guests should reflect our respect for Jesus and our other ancestors. Those of us who feel they belong to this place are kaitiaki, guardians of the mana and the ethos of this whare. The ethos is simple, really. Hospitality, kindness, compassion. Manakitanga. Hospitality means to make room and to be that room for others. A space, a place, smiles, food, empathy, engagement. Together we weave a culture of kindness and encouragement, not for our own benefit, although we are indeed beneficiaries, but for the beneficence of others, particularly those beaten down by the injustices of bad decisions, bad behavior, or bad luck. And so our mantra and strategy and theology is compassion, compassion, compassion. This house, or church, our wharenui, is also a place of dreaming. And Matariki is a time of dreaming. I don't know how it is for you, but on most December the 31st, I've struggled to stay awake to see the new year in. And then mark the occasion with a wee dram and shortbread. Not sure how those two really fit together. There's also been the New Year resolution thing. If social media is any guide, there seems to be little thought given to New Year resolutions. They're a form of wishful thinking done in the hours or minutes beforehand. Matariki, on the other hand, offers us a different metaphor for thinking about resolutions. It offers the metaphor of planting, taking a seed from the fields and forests of hospitality, kindness, and compassion, and putting it in the right sort of prepared ground, watering and fertilizing it, maybe staking it later when it grows, and then keeping it safe from hungry insects and other predators. In other words, we undertake actions now that will, in time, with the right care, bring results. But the results aren't instantaneous and will take much work and attention. In this house of our tupuna Jesus, we are encouraged to do this sort of dreaming. Indeed, this sort of dreaming is a prayer. We dream of God's kingdom, God's queerdom God's kingdom come. Not an end of time drop from the skies apocalypse, but something we plant, tend, and help bring to fruition. The reading from today for Matthew 6 asks us, why do we worry? Well, it's usually because we're afraid. We're afraid of insecurity and loss and pain and others' criticisms. Matthew tells us to set aside our fears, park them in the garage, trust that they will be resolved in time, and plant the coming of God's reign. Prepare the ground, plant the seeds of it in your own life, in places where you have some influence. One way to express joy at Matariki is to engage in ngā mahi atarea, the arts of pleasure, namely singing, weaving, dancing, carving, problem solving, storytelling, feasting, and game playing. During this period of joyful abundance, tribes throughout Aotearoa, without exception, historically placed their great emphasis on kite flying. As a community of followers of Jesus, we sing and pray, care, help, eat, seek, and make. And it's probably making that many of us do the least of. When did you last make a kite? Kites are a form of joy that encourages our dreams. The wind seemingly miraculously catches the kite and lifts it into the heavens. There, with some help from us, it stays bobbing and weaving and soaring. Kites are a symbol of the connection between our grounded selves and the mysterious beyond. Jesus came to be called by the community of John the light of the world. Dreaming in the body of our tupuna Jesus resonates too with Matariki's theme of light. The light given us by our ancestors in the past, the light of the guiding stars. It's our responsibility to be bearers of light in our time and to pass it on to those who would follow. As Matthew says, let your light shine before others. In this Matariki season, we may ask, where is the light leading us? Can we turn aside, go off track like Moses did, follow our curiosity to something new and something that would be demanding? There is an old proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. What will we resolve to do in this year ahead? Blessings to you.